It's 3:14 a.m., somewhere right now, and a parent is standing in a dark room, fed 2 hours ago, diaper changed, burped, rocked for 40 minutes, white noise machine on, smart bassinet running its $300 self-soothing algorithm, and the baby is still screaming like the world is ending. So the parent does what every modern parent eventually does. They open their phone and they type the question that has been typed a billion times before. Why won't my baby stop crying? And here's the thing nobody tells you while you're standing there at 3 a.m., exhausted and ashamed and convinced you're doing something wrong. For 99% of human history, this exact moment, a baby crying in the dark, almost never happened the way it happens to you. Not because ancient mothers were stronger, not because ancient babies were calmer by nature, because of something we lost so completely, we forgot it was ever there. And once you understand what that something was, you will never look at your own exhaustion the same way again. Set up the shocking data. Did babies even cry the same amount back then? For decades, scientists assumed the answer was obviously yes. A baby is a baby. Hunger hurts, discomfort hurts, babies cry, end of story. Then, in 1977, anthropologist Melvin Konner spent years living with the Juhoansi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last populations on Earth, still living a hunter-gatherer lifestyle close to how humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years. He measured something nobody had measured before. How much do their babies actually cry? The numbers stopped researchers cold. Hunter-gatherer infants cried less than 1 minute per hour during the day. At night, they barely cried at all. Now compare that to what multiple studies have found in the United States and Europe. Modern infants cry anywhere from 1 to 5 hours a day, peaking brutally around 6 weeks old. That's not a small gap. That's a 300 to 400% difference. Same species, same biology, same nervous system, wired the same way for 300,000 years. So, if the baby hasn't changed, what has? Fear 1, the touch gap. Here's the first piece of the answer, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. They were never put down. In 1972, researchers at Johns Hopkins followed 26 mother-infant pairs for an entire year, testing the popular belief of the time that responding quickly to a crying baby spoils them, teaches them crying gets results, makes them cry more. The data said the opposite. Babies whose cries were answered quickly and consistently cried significantly less by the end of the first year. The ones left to cry it out cried more, not less. Responsiveness didn't create dependence. It created security. But here's what made hunter-gatherer babies different from even the responsive Western babies in that study. It wasn't just fast responses. It was constant contact. Researchers found that these infants spent roughly 90% of their first year in direct physical contact with another human body. Not a crib, not a bouncer, not a swing. Skin, warmth, a heartbeat, breathing rhythm always present. This wasn't some parenting philosophy. It was simply what every human did, because for almost the entirety of our species' existence, there was no alternative. In 1986, a pediatrician in Montreal ran what's now called the carrying study. One group of mothers carried their babies an extra 3 hours a day, even when the baby was calm. The other group carried babies mainly when they fussed, like most modern parents do. The result? Babies who were carried more cried 43% less overall and 51% less during the brutal 6-week peak. Carrying didn't soothe crying after it started. It prevented the crying altogether. Here's why that makes biological sense. Human babies are the most helpless newborns on the planet. A baby horse stands within an hour of birth. A baby deer runs from predators within a day. Even baby chimpanzees can grip their mother's fur the moment they're born. Human infants can't even hold up their own heads. Anthropologists call this the obstetrical dilemma. As human brain size exploded over millions of years, our skulls had to grow. But the pelvis could only widen so much before walking upright became impossible. So evolution found a workaround. It kicked human babies out early. Essentially, every human infant is born roughly 3 months premature compared to other primates. That means for the first few months of life, a baby's nervous system is still operating like it's supposed to be inside the womb. The next closest substitute is another human body, warm, moving, heartbeat, audible. When you put a newborn down in a crib in another room and shut the door, that baby's ancient nervous system doesn't know it's 2026 and perfectly safe. It runs the only script it has, one written 100,000 years ago. I have been left. I am going to die. The crying isn't manipulation. It's the oldest alarm system in the human body. And in the world that wrote that code, it worked. Because someone always came. Fear 2, the lost village. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because babies weren't just held constantly, they were held by almost everyone. In 2005, anthropologist Sarah Hardy published research that changed how scientists understood human child rearing entirely. She found that across cultures and throughout history, mothers never raised children alone. Grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, unrelated women in the community all shared the work. She called it alloparenting, from the Greek word for other. Humans, it turns out, may be the most cooperative breeders on the planet. Among the Ife people of Central Africa, researchers found infants were passed between caregivers an average of 8 times every hour. By 18 weeks old, a typical baby had been regularly cared for by 14 different people. That's not neglect. It's the opposite. It's an entire village, biologically and socially wired to keep one baby alive. When a baby cried, the response didn't have to come from one exhausted person. It came from whoever was closest. An aunt nursing while the mother gathered food. A grandmother carrying the baby while the mother slept. An older sibling distracting the baby by the fire. No single person carried the entire weight, because no single person was ever supposed to. Here's the number that should genuinely unsettle you. For 99% of human history, a mother was almost never alone with her baby for more than a few minutes at a time. The setup we now consider completely normal, one mother, one house, a locked front door, total isolation, is a social experiment that is roughly 70 years old. Before that, in study after study of pre-industrial societies, researchers found something striking. Out of 186 different societies analyzed in one landmark 1973 study, the mother was the sole caregiver in exactly 0 of them. And yet today, we put a woman alone in a house with a newborn for 12 hours a day, hand her a pamphlet and a phone number for a lactation consultant, and call it maternity leave. Then we act surprised when postpartum depression rates climb. A 2015 study comparing cultures found something that should change how you think about this entirely. In societies where new mothers are surrounded by support, female relatives constantly present, helping, sharing the load, postpartum depression rates are dramatically lower. In the United States, it affects roughly 15 to 20% of new mothers. Among traditional hunter-gatherer groups, it is virtually non-existent. This isn't a difference in brain chemistry. It's the difference between being asked to do something humans evolved to do as a team, alone. Fear 3, the night that forgot us. There's one more piece almost completely lost to modern life, and it might be the most important one. Ancient humans never treated nighttime as something a baby needed to learn to survive alone. In traditional societies, mothers slept beside their babies, same bed, same room, often for years. A researcher who spent over 30 years studying infant sleep using infrared cameras and physiological monitors found something remarkable. When a mother and baby sleep close together, their sleep cycles begin to synchronize. Breathing, heart rate, and arousal patterns start to match. The mother drifts into a lighter stage of sleep, subtly more aware. The baby wakes more often, but only briefly. Feeding happens in a half-asleep state. The baby latches, feeds, and both drift back into sleep, often within 90 seconds. No crying, no fully waking up, no lights. No real consciousness required at all. The researchers' conclusion was blunt. Solitary infant sleep, the version we now treat as the gold standard, is an extremely recent invention. For nearly all of human history, a baby sleeping completely alone would have meant real danger. So babies are still biologically wired to panic the instant they wake up isolated. It's not a flaw. It's the original survival code running exactly as designed. In cultures where co-sleeping remains common, parents barely discuss sleep problems because the concept barely exists. Babies wake at night. Of course they do. You feed them and everyone drifts back to sleep. It isn't treated as a crisis to solve. And nighttime itself meant something different. There was no such thing as sleeping through the night. For anyone, baby or adult, night was long, communal, lit by fire. If a baby cried at 2 in the morning, the mother wasn't alone in silence, calculating how many hours of sleep she had left before a 9 a.m. shift. Other people were already half awake nearby. Someone could take the baby. Someone could hum a tune. The pressure didn't sit on one set of shoulders. The entire concept of getting your baby to sleep through the night didn't exist because the goal itself didn't exist. People slept when tired and woke when needed, and babies were simply folded into that rhythm instead of disrupting it. 75,000 years ago, a mother walks with her baby strapped against her chest while she gathers food. When the baby cries, she nurses mid-stride. When she's exhausted, her sister takes over without being asked. At night they sleep close, breathing in rhythm, waking in soft, overlapping waves that nobody bothers to count. 40,000 years ago, a father stands by a dying fire, swaying gently with a fussing infant, the same swaying motion humans have used for as long as we've existed, because it mimics walking, and walking tells a baby's brain one simple thing: we are moving, which means we are safe, which means we are together. Somewhere across those hundreds of thousands of years, humans built a world where a crying baby was never an emergency. It was simply a baby, and there were always more hands than the crying could outpace. Now fast forward to a nursery designed to look like a tiny basket-shaped crib, decorated to mimic the womb, fitted with a white noise machine that simulates a heartbeat, an app tracking sleep cycles down to the minute, 3 different parenting books promising the one schedule that finally works. We are trying to manufacture, with technology and products and advice columns, something that used to require none of that. Something that used to simply be other human bodies, present, responsive, all day and all night, without having to be asked. Here is the part almost nobody says out loud. Modern parenting doesn't feel harder, because modern parents are doing something wrong. It feels harder because modern parents are quietly attempting something humans were never designed to do completely alone. Every time someone says, "it takes a village," and you feel a small ache because you don't have one, you are running directly into 300,000 years of evolutionary expectation. Every time your baby cries, and some part of you whispers that you should be able to fix this single-handedly, you are arguing with biology itself. And biology has had a very long head start. Every time you set your baby down and they immediately scream, and you start to wonder if something is broken in them or in you, nothing is broken. Your baby is doing exactly what every human baby has done for hundreds of thousands of years. To the instant they're separated from the body they expect to be touching, they are calling you back, the only way they know how. And every single time you pick them back up, even after a book told you not to, even after someone implied you were creating bad habits, even when you are running on fumes and certain you cannot do this one more time, you are doing the exact same thing a mother in a cave was doing 50,000 years ago. The same instinct that kept infants alive through darkness, predators, and cold for 300,000 years. The same instinct that quietly built trust and security and attachment, which eventually built language and cooperation and civilization itself. You are answering the cry. There's an old saying among one hunter-gatherer group that still survives today. A crying baby is simply a baby whose mother is too far away. Not a bad baby. Not a manipulative baby. Not a baby who urgently needs to learn independence at 6 weeks old. Just a baby who knows in every cell that closeness has always meant survival. We didn't lose the ability to soothe our babies. We lost the village that once made it possible to do that without quietly breaking ourselves in the process. So if it's 3 a.m. right now and you are holding your baby alone, exhausted, wondering why this feels so much harder than it's supposed to, you are not failing. You are doing precisely what humans have always done. You are simply being asked to do it inside a world that forgot how much support that was always meant to require. The baby in your arms right now doesn't know anything about sleep schedules or developmental milestones or smart bassinets. They only know you. And for 300,000 years, that was always enough. Maybe, somehow, it still is.